Welcome to another episode of Tales from the Tables with your host, Rob Bradley,
John Charles Ciccarelli,
James Burrows,
and Damien Hallwood.
Yes, welcome everybody to episode 33 of Tales from the Tables. Great to be back with you guys. Sorry about my little hiatus. I keep having these little blips where my son decides he wants to have whooping cough or is just being a general pain in the ass. So yeah, but all is well, and I'm back. And yeah, great to be back.
Good.
So
and the son is doing well. He's okay.
Yep, he's all back to
Excellent.
normal. He's got a snivelly
Great.
nose, and we're giving him shots of Calpol every couple of minutes. But no, we managed to catch it when he was quite well. He managed to get it. We managed to realize that he had a problem quite early on. Took him to the doctors. Our doctor was very good and literally gave him antibiotics right there and then. And I think we caught it in a really good and a really a decent amount of time.
In a decent time, yeah.
So he also had his vaccination literally 2 days prior to actually getting it. So all good. So
Cool.
how are you guys doing? All well?
Yeah,
Can't complain. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I could, but who would listen? Not our listeners. So all good. Busy reading a lot of Vecna in preparation for running it. I'm almost done making my way through the book. Making my way. It's I'm sure we'll talk about it because I know we've started to, James and Damien. We've started to read it. We have thoughts, but we can't be spoilery. We can't. We have to be very good.
Right.
No spoilers on this one.
Exactly.
It's gonna be difficult because I feel like a lot of the problems I have with it are spoilery. Some of the stuff that I like about it more so spoilery.
Should we just get into it because I can tell you what it is because it has to do with spoilers, but I won't spoil it. So I'll barrel right in. So the premise of the adventure, the thing that basically gets the heroes going, depends on a very big twist later on in the story, and you need a lot of buy-in from both the character side of things and the player side of things. In other words, the players can't really know what's happening, what's going on. And there is something that isn't as it seems. That's all I will say.
Okay.
The problem is all over the internet, because now that this is live on D&D Beyond and people have been picking up copies and starting to read through it, people are talking about it because it's kind of the linchpin of the whole adventure as written.
Good one.
And it is all over the internet. It's basically unavoidable. Any random Reddit post this morning as I woke up, I was scrolling through Facebook and I found a comic on D&D Beyond's sort of Facebook page. And that comic, while not directly spoiling what happens, immediately puts players on the suspicious side. And it was meant to be comedic, right? Which is funny. It's a cute comic. But I'm like, how could you advertise this? This is literally the linchpin twist of the whole adventure. Don't let players go in already suspicious. And it's basically unavoidable. So now, and I found out that one of my players already knows about it. And from that, and now I'm already throwing my hands up because I don't really know what to do. As written, the whole adventure depends on that. So as per usual, I'm making a lot of homebrew changes and kind of adjustments to the thing. And now this is going to have to be a big one of them where I have a couple of ideas, although I have to still flesh it out and see if I can set it in stone to basically change what the twist is, or at least how it happens.
Right.
So
the adventure also, if people do know the twist, there's always going to be a natural inclination for players to try and flirt. Some players might be overt about it, others might be a bit more subtle, but try and flirt with the twist and try and sort of poke some little holes in it. But the adventure very explicitly makes it almost impossible for that to be done. So it also means that there could be a little bit of frustration on both sides of the table if that happens. So it's a really tricky one. It's a real shame to have it so prevalent out there on the internet and also be so important to the adventure.
So all this to say, if you are a player hoping to play this adventure anytime soon, please don't look up anything about it.
Cancel your broadband, basically. And
yeah.
Go live in a cave.
As a hermit in a cave.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Greetings, fellow adventurers. Are you tired of using subpar tables for your epic tabletop quests?
Absolutely. We need something that matches the grandeur of our adventures.
Well, fear not, dear listeners. Allow us to introduce to you Robert Rose Carpentry. Established for 10 years as a specialist in crafting bespoke gaming tables that are as functional as they are beautiful.
Built to precision, with custom add-ons and exclusive features, 100% sustainable and environmentally friendly. Every inch of their gaming tables are made from reclaimed wood, then crafted into a solid masterpiece that will last aeons.
And here's the best part. As proud sponsors of Tales from the Tables, Robert Rose Carpentry are offering an exclusive 10% discount to all our listeners.
Imagine the thrill of transforming your dining table into a custom-built gaming experience for you, your friends, and your family to enjoy time and time again.
So don't wait any longer. Head over to www.robertrosecarpentry.com/Tales from the Tables and use the code ROLLDARK10 to claim your discount at checkout.
Craftsmanship, adventure, and savings. What more could you ask for? Thanks to Robert Rose Carpentry for supporting our podcast and enhancing our gaming experiences.
Absolutely. Now let's roll those dice and weave some epic tales.
Indeed. Until the next time, adventurers.
This is one of those things that normally I'd be fine with players separating their meta knowledge from their character knowledge, and this is what you know in character and out of character, and trusting them to sort of play into it. But this I cannot stress enough how much of the adventure depends on it, how much of it is a buy-in from the get-go. And the players themselves need to be surprised by this. Not just the characters, but the players themselves need to be surprised, unless you are the most gracious player ever. Like Damien said, like someone inevitably you will try and start trying to poke holes in it, and that's kind of just second nature. You'd be like, hey, not everything here is as it seems. I wonder what we can find out about this, because I know something above table, and that will bleed down into the adventure itself, which can immediately throw everything off. So like I said,
I can imagine players that I've had just been like, can I roll an insight check?
Yeah, and be like, why? I haven't said anything suspicious. And they're like, yeah, can I do it anyway?
Yeah, but something doesn't seem right. And then I guess it's one of those. And no matter how well the adventure sort of covers the secret, there will be a way around it. And as 10th level players, they will find it somehow, somewhere. Especially if you're, as a DM, slip up, give them a magic item that maybe you shouldn't do, that's like not in the official module or whatever, and you don't realize, oh god, they can use that to unravel everything. Because that's happened.
Well, I had that thought of like, oh well, if it's a magic item or some spell that has not been thought of in the text that tells you how to preserve the secret, then I'll just make the MacGuffin that all of this depends on that much more powerful, because it literally is it's meant to be the nope button. That MacGuffin, which again we're trying not to spoil as much as we can, but that MacGuffin is meant to thwart all ways of you finding out exactly what the twist is. And I was like, I don't mind making this MacGuffin just lean into that hardcore, because that's the whole point of it existing. There's literally no other reason this MacGuffin exists, this item.
Okay.
But I can't do anything about player knowledge. That MacGuffin won't help me with player knowledge. So
okay, so I have no idea. I have no idea what happens. By the way, I've got no idea about the twist. I've not been looking into it at all. Is it anything to do with? Have they tried to align it with Stranger Things and the sort of twist that happens there, where you've got basically like a person who's, well, I don't even want to give the twist away really for Stranger Things season 4. But if you haven't watched season 4, it's been out a while. Yeah, so if you haven't watched it and you plan on watching it, just put your fingers in your ears now. So the guy who's the fellow patient with Seven in Stranger Things ends up being Vecna, and is like an all-powerful dude. And it's like, so is it something like that? Or?
Without spoiling it at all, or even hinting at spoiling at it, the level of reveal is probably about on par with that level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I'm
it's
not
not
going to
related
say
to that, but it is.
I'm not going to say whether in what way it's related to that, or whether it's related to that, or whether it's what it's about at all. But the level of twist is on that same sort of level of kind of a big late game reveal that really does hinge the entire adventure on itself. And if it were to get somehow, unfortunately, unraveled in game, you'd have a lot of heavy lifting to do to keep the story propelling forward, especially if you're trying to keep to the book. It would heavily derail.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so
what you were saying earlier, James. Like, yeah, they're level 10, they'll figure it out. They're not just level 10. They're like levels 10 through 18 to 19 while this is going on.
Yeah.
You know, like it goes on for a while. It is the majority of the book that depends on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
So,
So what type of plot twist is it from a narrative perspective? Is it like is it a red herring? Is it like a false protagonist?
I
Any of those?
hesitate to tell you. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
like. I feel like I've already said too much, and I know that probably some players of mine will be listening to this podcast. All I will say is try and avoid as much as you can. Go in wholesale, wanting a good time, wanting to stop the big bad. And while we're on the topic, go in if just a DM's advice in case you're playing Vecna Eve of Ruin from anybody's table. Come up with a way, keep your backstory open enough that the DM has a nice time fitting your story into the overarching main villain, which is not a spoiler to say it's Vecna, right? Sort of. But in all seriousness, try and leave that open, or even if you want, work in, because Vecna being a multiversal being basically means you can invent anything up for him, any kind of history for him. So work in a way that Vecna is related to your character, or in some fashion, maybe not directly, and maybe it's not like, you met at a board meeting, you shook hands, but in some fashion, you have a family member that was once a cultist or something to that degree. You have fun. I'm coming up with a whole chart of ideas that I can feed my players. Because the adventure doesn't really do that for you. The book doesn't give you a lot of options on that front. And as I mentioned before, there is a significant lack of that sort of relationship in the adventure. Anything to make you tie more into the main story is going to be better for you in the long run. So do that.
I think it'd be cool to have maybe like an acolyte of Vecna who'd prayed for maybe like a family member to be returned to the dead, and Vecna ignored him, or the player felt that he was ignored by Vecna.
That could be interesting. Yeah, it's a great twist.
Has a vendetta against him.
Let's get into the news, because I would like to explore this a bit more after the news, if that's cool, with regards to plot twists in general. I think it'd be quite good to kind of go over how you guys have added plot twists into your games, and whether or not you've worked with players or individual players in order to come up with really interesting plot twists where like that player's backstory perhaps is like fed into your narrative as well. Just anything like that. So have a little, get your subconscious brains on the go while we're talking about the news, and then let's
cool.
Let's get into it.
I like it.
Cool.
So right.
So what news we got, Damien?
Not a great deal. It'll leave us a bit of time, I think, to get into that discussion. There isn't a huge amount going on. Last time we looked at a whole plethora of artwork from the player's handbook, including its cover, which I liked well enough. I thought some of the artwork, here he is, Negative Ninny. I thought that some of the artwork from inside the book would have made a better cover. They have revealed another one. They've revealed the alternate in-store cover for the book.
This.
Yeah, Chris shared it in the group chat.
Yeah, in the WhatsApp.
When
cool.
I saw that image, it was just the raw image. It didn't have any of the affectation or text or anything over it, the overlay. I've since, which I wasn't again, Negative Ninny, here he is. I wasn't the biggest fan of the artwork. I didn't think it seemed very epic adventure player's handbooky, but having seen it in context, It's a little nicer. I do like the addition of all the sort of filigree and color and text. It's a little nicer with that in situ. But again, the image is a bit tame. It doesn't feel grand.
No, it's
James, you seem to agree.
Yeah, I do agree. It's the camp scene, isn't it, with the gold dragon? It doesn't scream action adventure. It screams like Stardew Valley, but with dragons.
Oh, I see what you mean, though, Damien.
It looks like a fable. It looks like a fable rather than an adventure.
Yes. Yeah. And I see what you mean with the filigree. The rest of the book design for the alt cover, if you're able to Google image it, is beautiful. There's a lot of filigree, like you were saying, a lot of decoration. The 50th anniversary logo on the back looks epic. The framing, even the font, I'm actually a big fan of. So like design wise, that's cool. But the art, if you look really closely, the 3 characters, Sans the dragon, Son the dragon, that they have featured have these just little black beady eyes that look completely soulless, and they just look like little puppets. It reminds me of like Coraline style, like button eyes. It's so creepy.
It is lovely artwork. I should come out. I'm not slating the artist in any way. It is beautiful.
Oh, I am. Let's go, artist. At me. No, I'm kidding. It's lovely. It's just Is it right?
But as something that is going to draw new people to D&D, it's not a piece of art that I think would do that. If you know what I mean.
Also like prominently features a kettle.
Yeah, like that is the thing that's like center is this campfire.
Yeah, it's in the sweet spot, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
It's just a kettle.
So I do like the non-special cover artwork better. But yeah, even I agree some of the stuff that's in the book is even better than that.
It's a tricky one because I'm a sucker for a special edition, and it will rely on how, because I assume that the Dungeon Master's Guide and Monster Manual will have an equal alternate cover, and it will
hopefully
probably I assume it will probably match this style with a different color palette, probably, and then the artwork in situ as well, and it will depend on how good one or both of those look. As to whether I will be sort of tempted to pick this one up.
It would be nice. It'd be a nice idea if they had it so that it was all part of a jigsaw puzzle. And
if it all put together one large image,
together, made it one lovely, beautiful picture. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. One thing I love,
people would be encouraged to stick it on their shelves or stick it into a frame, perhaps even to make it look amazing.
One thing I really love is I know I harp on 4th edition quite a lot, but I've sort of since I liked it enough when it came out. I've since fallen a lot in love with it and use a lot of its stuff in 5th. But the cover, the Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide covers for 4th edition were great because the Player's Handbook was your classic adventurers, center stage, posing with their weapons and spells ready to go. And then the Dungeon Master's Guide was a dragon sort of coiled over a scrying orb. And the image in the scrying orb was the cover of the Player's Handbook.
Oh, wow. How cool is that?
That's cool.
Which was a really great idea.
That's a great idea.
This was the 4th edition Monster Manual?
Yes. Really? Well, not the Monster Manual, because that had, I believe, Orcus on the front of it. But it was the Player's Handbook and DMG.
And DMG. How cool is that?
It's really cool.
Oh, yeah. I see that now. That's so awesome. Yeah. Like you're being scried on. These are the players, all heroic and awesome. And the dragon is watching you. Yeah. How cool is that?
Brilliant.
Yeah. Nice.
Sorry.
I mean, the rest of the artwork looks really good. Oh.
You mean what? Sorry? Attacked by a squirrel?
Distracted, not attacked.
Distracted. Oh, right.
Just running along the fence in my garden. Sorry. Not D&D related in any way.
He's after your nuts, James. Hide your nuts.
Is it a dire squirrel?
Story of my life. Yes.
Or a were squirrel.
Yeah, could be a were squirrel.
That'd be pretty amazing, wouldn't it? God, that'd be horrific. You'd be like,
there's the title of our episode right there.
Were squirrel.
Where's the were squirrel?
Were squirrel and a plot twist. Plot twist. It was a were squirrel.
Well, that's ruined it.
That's it. Yeah, so this cover is, again, James is right. It is not a bad piece of artwork. It's a very stylistic, painterly, beautiful piece of artwork. It just is very fable-y and tame, and looks very kind of cutesy, and it doesn't seem to match the game that it's trying to portray particularly. It doesn't give the impression.
It doesn't even match the scope of the non-special edition cover, which looks actiony and heroic, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But that being said, some of the artwork that was released is really gorgeous. I mean, the level of detail, the personality of character that you get from all of these images, like each one of these random images depicting random heroes in this world, they look like a character I'd love to pick up and play. Like I'm looking at one right now that has an older human man as a barbarian, but he's got this shock of white hairs and mohawk, and he's got red tattoo bands coming down the middle of his forehead and across his shoulders. I realize that makes him sound a lot like Kratos, and he's holding an axe. So yeah, probably inspiration from Kratos. But he looks cool, and that's the point, right? Like, I would happily jump into the boots of that guy, or the kind of cool roguish looking bearded, I think it's either a dwarf or a maybe a halfling or a gnome behind him, holding out a staff with energy coming out of it, but like a big cheery grin on his face. Like they have a lot of personality. The art is really cool. So,
yeah. I really like the artwork that you showed earlier, Damien, before the podcast with your Spider-Man. Is it a special edition comic book that you showed us?
Yeah, just for context, it is if you want to look it up, it is a Spider-Boy #1 Virgin negative space cover. So Virgin, if you don't know comics, basically means it has no text on it at all, no title, no nothing. And the negative space, it's an image of Spider-Boy who has a classic red and blue suit. And the blue, rather than being rendered like the rest of the outfit, kind of spills out into a blue field of the entire page.
Sick.
So it's
really
there's
cool.
quite a lot of them. There's a Wolverine one coming down the line, which I'm really excited about getting. It's all yellow.
Nice.
Nice.
That's a lovely stylistic choice, and that would have been a great D&D great D&D cover. Yeah.
Well, going back to what you were saying about were-squirrels, if you guys could be bitten by a radioactive animal of your choice, what radioactive animal would you allow to be bitten by, and what qualities would you want from that animal?
Yeah, I'm assuming we get powers and not just radiation poisoning and possible rabies. Yeah.
Well, it's a roll of a dice, Damien. It's a roll of a dice. So you have to
pros and cons.
Yeah, pros and cons. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what would you pick? What would you pick?
As a real world animal rather than a D&D animal.
Yeah. So a radioactive creature bites
the mantis shrimp with the strongest punch in the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
And you can see every color known to the
they do have that
fabric of existence.
But they also can punch so fast that it boils water.
It like superheats and evaporates water. Yeah.
Yeah, and they punch so fast. I think the temperature that they're like the vacuum that they create when they're punching through water reaches close to the temperature on the surface of the sun, I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's exceeded that, or maybe it's close. Yeah. I watched a video literally yesterday, actually. It's funny you mention it, of a mantis shrimp punching an octopus, and the octopus looks so upset.
Yeah.
His eyes just kind of squint. But then really cool, the octopus grabs, I think it's a large clam shell or something to that effect from the sea floor, and then props it upright and holds it up like a shield. And it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen filmed underwater.
Amazing.
Because you see an octopus approaching the mantis shrimp with the shell up, using a tool. Exactly.
Yeah,
with the shield up, using a defensive weapon.
They say orangutans are in the Stone Age, don't they? Apparently, apparently they're like hunting for fish and everything else. They got like poles. You see that orangutan? That picture, that orangutan hanging from the thing. He's got a massive pole, and he's literally looking into the river, and he's spearing fish.
Oh my God, Dr. Zaius, man, it's mental. It's happening.
They're following.
We're getting Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, Damien, what would you choose, Damien? Bearing in mind you can be Spider-Man if a Spider-Man.
I was going to say to not necessarily be boring. To get Spider-Man's power set is pretty great if you can get over the motion sickness.
Yeah, right.
And vertigo.
Big things. Big things.
But being able to climb walls, having the strength, the spider sense is particularly useful. Being able to sense immediate danger to yourself, that's great. There is also the sort of functionally immortal jellyfish, which would be a great one to have.
Ooh.
Oh wow.
I feel like I've done myself dirty here. I also could have just chosen any bird so I could fly. But
there is flight. Yeah, that's a good one.
As a mantis shrimp, James, what would you call yourself as a superhero? What would you call you? What would your name be?
I think
Shrimp
I'd rather
man?
go with. I think I'd rather go with the mantis side of things, and it would also confuse people. They'd be like, "Oh, is a praying mantis man? No, I live in the water. Gotcha.
Wow.
Surprise! I'm a shrimp.
Surprise. I suppose being able to breathe underwater is a pretty solid.
Oh yeah,
thing.
yeah. Do they have gills?
You're man of our trio right now.
It shows how little I know about the mantis shrimp, other than they punch hard or ridiculously fast.
Presumably, they do have a form of gill that washes oxygen over their lungs.
Yeah,
right.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
You'd basically you'd be One Punch Man, wouldn't you? Basically, that would be who you'd be, wouldn't it? One Punch Man.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, a flying fish may be the best of both worlds. If I could fly and also breathe underwater, then that's the dream.
It's gonna be pretty cool.
That's pretty good. Although they do only glide.
I was gonna say they don't actually like take flight. They just jump out of the water and go woo.
Guys, don't spoil it for him.
Oh, sorry, James.
You're ruining it. You're ruining everything.
Actually,
what about Crab Man would be fun.
Crab Man.
Yeah, but you
one
can't
arm
walk
bigger than the other.
sideways.
Wait. Gosh,
JC?
I don't know. I honestly, I've always gravitated towards the wolf. I know that seems pretty basic and pretty terrestrial, but I mean, if you think about it, it's still enhanced strength, enhanced sense of smell and sight and hearing, pack mentality, natural weapons, able to survive extreme temperatures, and overall the family unit of a wolf pack as well. You know, you don't have to be the lone wolf alpha stereotype. I just generally love all those things. If it wasn't that, probably a hawk. I've always really thought hawks were really cool as well. The speed, obviously the freedom of flight, the talons, and the effectiveness of their hunting techniques. It's just so cool. I was tempted to say platypus because I was like, how cool would it be if you're the weirdest venomous creature on the planet? But no, that would be terrible. So no platypus man for me.
Cool. I'd have to go with either a leopard or a jaguar.
Ooh, jaguars.
I like jaguars. I like how how they can climb up trees, and they're very stealthy, and they're very kind of like that's
can drag body weights, I think, up to 3 times their size. They're incredibly strong. I think they're the strongest cat short of the tiger.
Wow,
and I know that they have a bigger bite force than any other cat. One of the biggest bite forces in the animal kingdom. I think it's like top 15 or something like that. Okay,
sweet.
Yeah, they can snap skull like off of caimans, like crocodiles and stuff like that.
Cool. So I'll be snapping skulls all over Oxfordshire.
Yeah.
While climbing up trees, and people wouldn't know I'm there. I'll be like hiding with my big long tail and stuff.
That's right.
Yeah, I think leopard's cool.
Leopard's really cool.
Any more news, Damien? Sorry for that little side.
No, that's good. I like it. Anytime I can bring Marvel and Spider-Man and his associated characters in to the podcast, I'll take it.
Right.
So we'd have a couple of other bits. One other D&D related thing. There is a book coming out called Greyhawk to Faerun and Beyond, a multiversal D&D lore book.
Wow.
Which sounds pretty interesting. It's not actually being made by Wizards of the Coast themselves. It is it's written by Adam Lee.
10 Speed Press.
10 Speed Press, thank you. I've lost the note I had on it. And it's the blurb sort of says it all, really. Worlds and Realms is an illustrated, story-driven retrospective celebrating the immersive world-building of D&D since the iconic game's inception in 1974. Legendary mage Mordenkainen takes adventurers on a fantastical journey through the multiverse, delving into memorable and fascinating lore and locations across all 5 editions of the game. So it's
Cool.
one part storybook, one part lore book.
That's awesome, and exactly the sort of thing that I like. If it's narrated by Morden Kanan, I'm imagining it to sort of be like the World of Ice and Fire book that came out that's narrated by like maesters from like In-World. So you sort of get like maybe a slightly biased but also mostly informative like book. Same with I think the Fire and Blood that they're basing the House of the Dragon off, that is just sort of all in world stories.
I really like that series. I mean, I know there's only one in. I'm still waiting for the second one to come out. It comes out soon, right?
June 16th.
June.
Oh, nice.
Brilliant. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I think it's brilliant. I think they nailed it.
I haven't actually watched it.
It's good.
Meaning to. I keep hearing good things about it.
A million times better than the last couple of seasons of Game of Thrones. They just went, there you go.
Hey,
that'll do.
Hey man, but that's how Game of Thrones started. Just wait till the later seasons of this.
They have an ending. They have an ending for this, so I'm hoping. And also, it's
Quote,
not the same directors
ending.
who aren't just gonna. I feel like now anyone doing stuff in the Game of Thrones verse is probably not going to make the same mistake where they're just like, well, fuck it, I'll go and direct a Star Wars, and then it is what your work is received so poorly that that's taken from you.
I hate so much. I hate so much what they've done with Star Wars. I really do.
You, Rob, really? You hate what they've done with Star Wars? I've never heard that before.
I just
never mentioned it.
Like if they had Han Solo now introduced into Star Wars as he was in the original films, they'd label him as toxic masculinity. They'd be like, no, sorry, can't have him. He's too toxic. He's too like when Leia says, "I love you," and he goes, "I know."
I know. And that was
it's like an arrogant guy who's like, just an absolute fucking baller. They'd be like, "No, sorry, no, he can't be in it."
I mean, that's the nice thing about Star Wars is that it runs many different personalities and styles, and the galaxy is a very wide place, and not every person in it is going to be perfect. And that was the whole point. A lot of people had a lot of big flaws that hopefully and eventually they overcame. In Han Solo's case, obviously, but that goes without saying. But everyone pegs him as the out for himself, self-interested, doesn't really get involved if he doesn't have to be, and then he shows up at the very end to save the kid and let's blow this place and go home.
It was good. It was good for that respect. I think it's just for some reason at the moment now it's like everyone's either really 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 powerful, and like Thrawn, like Grand Admiral Thrawn, like what was that all about? He's like this. He's supposed to be like this fucking like solid dude,
genius tactician.
And yet he's just like a. Nah.
I've read the book. I read one of the Thrawn books, and the way they build him up is incredible. He's really a well-written character, and I remember in the animated series he was scary. I have not seen the live-action versions of him yet. I've kind of just been putting that to the side. Is he the villain of Ahsoka? Is that where he shows up? Okay, all right. We'll see how that goes.
Sort of. I think they're doing a movie with him as a villain. They're doing. I can't remember if it's just one. But they're tying all the series together in a movie. So Ahsoka, The Mandalorian, all that. They're going to then do a movie following on from when the series ends.
I hope the Acolyte is good.
That looks good.
Look good. It does look.
That does look good. Yeah. Here's hoping.
I love.
Oh,
Jedi
Damien!
stuff.
No, what's that face?
No.
Sorry, I have not been impressed with any of the trailers for that yet.
I think I've only seen stills, maybe like a snippet of the trailer.
I don't think it looks like, speaking of not looking like what it's supposed to be, I don't think it looks like, from the trailers only, it doesn't look like what it was sort of touted to be. And they released an awesome piece of artwork, a poster, before they showed the trailer of a lightsaber on the ground, like half dragged across the ground with a trail of blood kind of behind it. And it's like, wow, that's so dark. And then the trailer looks very light and flouncy and martial arty, and it doesn't look gritty at all. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it will be great. But no, nothing has impressed me with Star Wars other than Andor.
Andor is incredible.
And the early seasons of Mandalorian for a long time. Nothing has hit those levels for me.
Sorry, just to clarify, is this supposed to be the one that's set in the Old Republic era? The first live action Old Republic era? They better do it that justice. There is so much good material for that era.
Darth Bane, fantastic storyline.
Yeah.
When he becomes when they sets up the rule of two, all that kind of shit. And also as well, I'd like to see Yoda. I want to see young Yoda. Or younger Yoda.
This is even before that.
No, it's closer. I think it's only set like 100 or so years before the prequels. I think that is roughly the time.
So it's not Old Republic. Okay.
He's 900 years old, isn't he?
Yeah, so Yoda can realistically be in it, but I don't think it's going to go back. So at this point, I think from what I've read about Star Wars lore, there shouldn't be any Sith. So it is yet to be seen whether whoever is wielding this red lightsaber is actually a Sith.
I think their costume is needlessly over the top evil as well.
To watch this trailer. I guess I haven't seen the whole trailer yet.
It's needlessly over designed, I think, to look how evil I look.
Right.
It's got teeth and everything on a helmet. It doesn't.
I do like the helmet.
I don't know. It just no. Maybe I'll be completely wrong.
We'll see.
I wasn't impressed.
We'll see. There's teeth on the helmet. Where? I haven't seen that. That's cool.
It's sort of like a Kylo Ren, Darth Vader-esque helmet, but it's got like teeth looking. Sort of
is it? Am I thinking of? It looks a little bit like. I think I'm thinking of Chainsaw Man without the chainsaw.
Oh, really? Is that what that looks like?
That grin, that like toothy grin that he has on his helmet. Is that the character I'm thinking of?
I have recently run a Chainsaw Man-esque one shot for D&D because of a player being super into that and requesting it for their birthday, and I was like, I don't know this series, and I started to jump into it.
Yeah, the mask looks Chainsaw Man grin-esque.
I just came across the image that you're talking about. Yes, you're right. It has that, just without the protruding saw blade. Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that reminds me of.
I've not watched Chainsaw Man. I've seen a lot of anime, but I've not watched that. It's never really appealed to me. Just seems a bit too Japanese. without being insulting to any Japanese people that might be listening, but
stylistically, their shows are very, very, very different.
They go out there with like, oh, I know what we'll do. How about this and this? And you're like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, there's no restraint on their design work, which is something I love.
Me too.
There's a lot of restraint in Western sort of character design and creature design versus Japan, where they just, like you say, let's just give him chainsaws, just all the chainsaws coming out of his face and his body, and
my bro's going,
and somehow that's the most tame thing that you see on that show. Weirdly.
It's brilliant.
I can't really join in because I don't really enjoy or watch anime. I don't know what it is about the art style. I don't enjoy.
I love the art style. I realized early on that it's a very, very deep rabbit hole for any anime practically, and I never.
How can you not like anime?
I've never gone down too deep.
I think, to be fair, there have been some that I watched as a kid, and then as I've grown up, I think what's annoyed me is just if I want to watch a full series, they get very long and potentially
that's
overly convoluted.
How can you not love that?
I mean,
it is
Gundam.
cool.
I think the ones that I watched as a kid were obviously Gundam, Dragon Ball Z. There was, I feel like another one that was similar, like Zoids, something like that. I don't know that's an anime. Yeah.
Do you guys ever watch Card Captors? I asked this because it was a weird show that was on when I got home from school for like a couple of years of my life, and it would come Card Captors. It came right after Yu-Gi-Oh and right before Jackie Chan Adventures. So it was like I would watch those three shows back to back, and it was I can't really tell you what it was about because I never watched it like front to end or start to finish. But the premise was very similar to Yu-Gi-Oh, except it was a true anime and very over the top, where they captured monsters in cards and then could summon them to do battle. But it wasn't in the idea of a card game. It was like, there are monsters threatening the world and we can capture them in cards. that kind of thing.
No, that rings no bells at all.
Not a single bell. Yeah,
No.
it doesn't for most people, because that's why I always ask them. I was like, here's the one obscure anime I think I know. Apparently it's based on Cardcaptor Sakura from as the manga, but I've never read that. So there you go.
Yeah.
Add us in Discord if you're a fan of Cardcaptors, the American version of the anime.
Occasionally, I will try to watch one. Like I tried to watch Attack on Titan.
That's
Oh
intense.
God.
It's I don't know why I didn't enjoy it. I think a lot of it is it's almost like overacting is not what I don't enjoy about some
it's
of
very
it. Like,
it's very melodramatic.
It's very
it's very
melodrama.
Yeah, it's that guy who like this. You get this quite a bit with like male protagonists in anime. They're very like, like really angry and like
That was pretty good, Rob. You should dub. You should do some dubbing. Go down there and do some anime dubbing.
Christ.
Pretty good.
Like after like an episode of like Goku powering up or whatever, I'm like, oh come on, get on with it.
Yeah.
Spirit Bomb that takes 3 episodes to.
I want the story to progress. I don't need like just fast forward. Just tell me. That he's been there long.
If you want the story to progress, we've anime powered up our segue. Let me follow the thread back through anime, back through Star Wars. Here we are, all the way back, just going through all the segues. Now we'll just finish up because there's really only a very little amount of news left, and I do want to cover this this twist thing for D&D
topic.
So Greyhawk at 360 plus pages, hardcover. You can pre-order it now. I think it's slated for October. It sounds pretty cool. There's a couple of pieces of artwork that you can see from it, including a very cartoony gibbering mouther, which looks great. Should be a good read. If you like D&D lore and the history of the game, should be a really great read. Really quickly, just because I really like the system and the people who create it. There's a Kickstarter going on for Blade Runner, the role-playing game, coming up for a campaign book called Replicant Rebellion. So if you're a fan of the Blade Runner game from Free League, and you want to help support getting a campaign book on your shelf, then there is a Kickstarter coming soon for that, which should be really, really cool.
That does sound really cool. Okay. All right.
And finally, another expansion to another game, Shadowrun. We talked a little bit about Shadowrun on a previous episode. D&D meets cyberpunk meets sci-fi. It's coming to Munchkin. Because everything comes to Munchkin eventually.
Everything comes to Munchkin,
so Munchkin is getting a Shadowrun expansion.
Shadowrun Munchkin, okay.
Yeah, Shadowrun Munchkin. It's got all the attitude that you can imagine. There's even a piece of artwork I'm looking at here that looks like Old Man Cable, a little bit from Marvel. But
officially licensed?
Cartoony, and it looks officially licensed Shadowrun.
That's hilarious.
A new core set, Munchkin Shadowrun, available for pre-order. Features a total of 193 brand new cards, able to be played on its own or combined with other Munchkin sets.
That's funny. Yeah. That really is. Yeah, and it looks actually well designed, honestly. Cartoony as all Munchkins are, but yeah, cool.
Yeah, they don't. It's a cartoony, simplistic style, but they don't shy away from capturing the spirit of whatever it is. That there's an infinite number of Munchkin expansions now, including the obligatory Lovecraftian expansion, which I think it's even called the obligatory Lovecraft expansion. Really? I think it might actually be called that.
Munchkin. Oh my god! There's Warhammer 40K and Age of Sigmar Munchkin. Are you kidding me? Oh man, there's everything. Yeah, you're not kidding.
It's a rabbit hole.
Guest artist edition. Oh my god! I opened up a Google tab on this, and nope, it's too deep. Too deep.
And
slope.
That's the end of the news for the time being.
Nice one. Cheers, Damien. Cool. So, plot twists, guys. Excuse me. So, I'll start us off. So, in a campaign that I was running for my mates in London when I was living in London, we had one of the girls of the group. she was looking for her player character was looking for her long lost sister, and what I'd done is I actually tied in the long lost sister had become a all powerful sorceress, and she was actually the reason why all of the players were having all these problems and everything that's going on. She basically like she turned to like the dark side effectively, and it was up to her sister, who was being played by our friend Kelly. It's actually up to her to try and convince her to come back from the darkness and to reclaim her family heritage and all this kind of stuff. And it was really, really cool. Like it was a really, really decent game, and really kind of added like an emotive element to it. And the grand reveal was brilliant as well. All happened on top of a mountaintop, and you know,
Nice.
it was all like well, Larissa, I am your sister. It's like, it's like, yeah, it's really, really cool. So yeah,
my favorite twist ever was when James Bradley peeled off his mask and everyone at First Roll Dark Fest was like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" Everyone who didn't know you had a twin brother. That was great.
Yeah.
Spoilers! Spoilers! that was a plot twist for the next 8 Roll Dark Fests. Crap.
Yeah, right.
We've given it away.
Yeah, that's very funny.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
That's actually really cool. The mountaintop sort of pinnacle reveal. That sounds really cool as well.
I have we talked about them being tied to character backstories in my home campaign. I may have mentioned this previously, actually, I'm not sure. I have a player who's a cleric, a life domain cleric, and her deity is a version of Avandra, who she at some point in the campaign started calling Elandra, and it stuck. So the god is known as Elandra rather than Avandra, but we've stuck with it. And so this deity is always promoting, just take a step forward, don't think about it, just step, and luck will carry you forward. And the storyline that got revealed for her over time was that throughout the multiverse, as this gets a bit meta, so as a direct result of them completing Tomb of Annihilation and beating the villain of Tomb of Annihilation, that villain subsequently went back in time and began erasing her from the multiverse, so that only one version of her remains, and her deity was so fond of her that rather than let her be destroyed, she snatched her consciousness away and stored it inside a doppelganger. So for a good portion of the campaign, she didn't know she was a doppelganger. She just thought she was this person. But over time, it was revealed that her consciousness is the only thing left in the entire multiverse of her character, and it's been stored inside a doppelganger because Avandra kind of has a connection to doppelgangers. So
that's so cool.
That was a big twist, and there are more twists coming for her and those characters down the line. I told you, JC, who the ultimate villain of their campaign is going to be.
I'm really excited.
I can't say that out loud because they don't know who it is. But yeah. Many more twists to come.
Brilliant.
It's really cool. If you're listening, if you're one of these players in Damien's table, I am very excited for you because this is a really cool, I would even say like a frazzling twist. It's amazing. So I think, I don't know, James, before I dive in with my thoughts, did you want to share one?
I'm just trying to look up. So I had a player who quite early on was like, can I be a god, but not know that I'm a god? So I was like, yeah,
that's cool.
Absolutely. So you've lost all your memories. You've been cast down. I was like, that works perfectly with the setting that I've created here. You can be. So he was playing this dwarven bard who was the like a god of secrets under the mountain. I can't remember what his name is. I'm sure there's someone shouting it at us. But yeah, so we got all the way to level 20 with them. And in the final session, the characters at the end of that campaign ascended to godhood, except for this dwarf who was already technically a god. However, to have some of the other players survived, they pledged their soul as a god to serve an archdevil for I think a period of like 100 years or so before they were released. So that was quite good because they signed up to the pact. I think not really thinking it through that essentially now the Devils have got a god at their disposal. And so when I revealed that they were calling their debt in as soon as they'd finished off the big bad, that was pretty cool.
Nice.
So now they're in the background of my setting. There is just this dwarven bard who occasionally turns up, wrecks everyone's shit.
Bards are dangerous, man. Bards can be dangerous. Yeah. I think I have a twist per campaign, and I think rather than going into the specifics of any of them, overall to start sort of talking about just the idea and the concept of including a twist, a plot twist in your game. I think it's one of the best things you can hope for. I wouldn't necessarily say include, because you run the risk. I think if you build your campaign around a plot twist, you run the risk of what's happening with Vecna, right? Where if anything goes wrong at any point about that, then you lose. You've put all your eggs in one basket. You lose the foundation of your adventure, and you're kind of then left grasping at straws, like, oh, what do I do now that they've found this out? But I think, okay, I will give a brief example, which I think I might have mentioned early on in the podcast. I know everybody here has probably heard it at some point. My favorite twist ever was the emergent storytelling twist that happened in a group that I was running through, a homebrew adventure set in the Feywild. And I had I wouldn't really call it a plot twist. I had a surprise planned for my players. They rescued a girl from a coven of hags who was a servant, a human girl servant. And she was my little kind of jab at the players being like, but I know lore about night hags and I know how they reproduce. So this girl at her 13th birthday is going to turn into a night hag. But they were about a week away from it, and that week took a lot of adventuring time, probably, a month's worth of playing in our game. And over that month, maybe more, they really liked this girl. And I gave her the name Alma, which means soul. Now that I'm saying it, I feel like I have told this story on the podcast.
You have. It's on the very first episode.
Yeah. Okay. So that whole thing happens. And ultimately, for those of you who don't want to go back and listen to it, the summary of this is they ended up saving the girl after she started to transform. They effectively used a powerful spell to transform her back, and she accompanied the party for a while. But then she died because of negligence on the party side. And when they returned to the Shadowfell to try and find her, they realized the gap in time was massive. Where it had been a couple of hours for them, it was 7 years for the girl. Brilliant. And a deity, the Raven Queen in the Shadowfell, had taken her under her wing and turned her against the party. And ultimately, the party refused to fight her. And she broke down and ended up saving the party and became the new Raven Queen, which was a plot twist that I never planned until the Shadowfell thing happened. And then I kind of laid out the groundwork. And I certainly didn't think the party wasn't going to fight, because they were sort of the pull the trigger now, ask questions later mentality. And to see them have grown over the course of a year to love an NPC that much, like, that's every DM's dream, to have someone that they really care about. So my favorite story to ever tell, obviously, since I've told it twice at this point,
it's a great story.
But I think in there that kind of summarizes my philosophy about plot twists. Don't make your whole campaign depend on it, but it is one of the most rewarding and fruitful things that you can get if you do have it. And I've had at least one per campaign. And tie it to your players as oh, God above is my witness. Please make it about the players. Don't just get so caught up in your own storyline that, because you're not writing a book, you're writing an adventure where the players are the heroes. So it needs to relate to them. They're not going to care that, the Lord of Neverwinter was a doppelganger all along, unless it means something to them.
Totally. Yeah.
On the other side of that, I've had a future plot twist ruined about, I think, probably like a year or so in advance, when I had players at a banquet with the king, and the king dies and transforms into a dragon as he dies. And they're like, oh shit, we should investigate this. Me not really thinking about it, had populated the tables in this banquet hall with all the nobility, and this one particular noble family happened to be vampires. That wasn't revealed. It was just some backstory that I knew was going to, further down the line, they would have to go to their castle to retrieve something because they were plotting something dark off on the side. Like, that's fine.
Right.
That would be included. And that a couple of their characters would, in the meantime, be having interactions with their noble son, who they were interacting with at this tournament beforehand.
Okay.
So they, I can't remember, it's cast, it's like detect good or evil. And immediately, obviously, Fey Fiend or the one that detects Fey Fiend or undead, instantly pinged up. They were like, we'll do it in the room to see if there's anything else untoward here. And they just picked up this vampire family and were like, okay, we cast Dawn, and I think some sort of spell to keep them in there. So it killed them about a year earlier than they should have done. So that took some rewriting.
Oh no!
Wow. That was a plot twist on me. I was like, oh shit, okay.
I bet though. I bet they loved that though. I bet.
Yeah,
I bet they really enjoyed that. It's frustrating on one side for you, but by the same token, I bet it's one of the more memorable sessions that you've had.
Yeah, they did talk about it.
Yeah. On the topic of plot twists, if people are thinking of adding plot twists to their game, certainly things I've realized about plot twists over time is a couple of things. One is don't worry about making it overly complex and with lots of twists and turns, because complexity simply comes from lack of knowledge. If the players, you'd be surprised how simple a plot twist you can put in front of the players and how complicated it can become just because they don't know all the pieces.
Yeah, right.
It's good advice. Yeah.
They will drive themselves insane with their own red herrings and come up with their own theories, which may or may not be better than yours, and you can then steal it as long as it makes sense. But don't make it, don't create a whole wall of thread and postcards of complex twist unless you feel confident to do so, because really it is only a few pieces, and then drip feed the information in. And the players will give you the complexity that you're looking for by going down the wrong path or thinking of the wrong thing. And if they do solve it, then as with James, I'm sure it will just lean into it and have a memorable session because it's still a twist in its own right. It's kind of like, has anyone ever seen the Coen Brothers movie Burn After Reading?
Yes, brilliant.
Yeah.
Love that film.
It's very much like that. Something very, very simple happens and becomes unbelievably convoluted just because the people who are trying to work it out can't fathom that it's as simple as it is.
Yeah, it's such a good premise.
Yeah.
Glass Onion as well.
They made Fiasco, didn't they? The Coen Brothers. That's their game. You know Fiasco? Yeah, you know Fiasco, the role-playing game.
Oh no,
I don't think
I didn't realize they were connected to it. No,
they made it. Yeah, they made it. I'm sure they made it. I'm sure.
Oh, that's cool.
Don't quote me. Someone
Rob Bradley says Coen Brothers created Fiasco
by the Coen Brothers.
I have no idea. Small time caper's gone disastrously wrong.
It is great watching players descend into a who is Pepe Sylvia level of rabbit hole, just all by themselves.
Actually, oh boy, I hope my friend doesn't listen to this podcast. I realized from the cover I own this, and I've never. It's a role playing game by Jason Morningstar.
Oh, it's not. But it's basically it's like a Coen Brothers.
Okay.
Yeah, inspired by Coen Brothers movies.
Yes, that's right. There you go. Sorry,
interesting.
Sorry.
Okay.
I obviously overheard wrong information. But yeah, so apologies to Jason.
Yeah.
Morningstar.
Huh.
It's a cool surname.
That's cool. Morningstar, like Lucifer. That's an intense last name. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Really cool. I agree with you, Damien. I think that's solid advice. Don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple. People will drive themselves mad. And of course, this leads to your reveal. Like, I think this is a big part too. It will depend on the twist, but using recent examples that we've talked about at length on this podcast today and last week about certain adventures published by Wizards of the Coast recently. I think agency in a twist is also really important. There are some books that do it better than others. Not that this is one of them, but I think if you have a reveal, you should let your players interact with it. You shouldn't shunt them into a state of, oh, this happened while you were off screen, or there's nothing you can do about it. The twist itself should be enough. You don't need to railroad or limit what they can do. And I think that just goes in general for players in any game. Try not to depower them too much, because the fun of the game is what you can do. It's not what you can't do. So
you speaking. It made me smile when you said derailing, because funnily enough, sort of a tale from the table / a reveal. This last session I had with my players, the last 2 sessions of my home campaign, have actually been aboard the Concordant Express, which is lifted from Keys of the Golden Vault.
Keys from the Golden Vault.
Now, I'm not following that path. It's part of their own story, but I've lifted that kind of that setting and that train and the characters on it to allow them to get to somewhere where they want to get to, but using that as a vehicle, because they've just come from the Shadowfell, which was extremely dark and dour and very, very depressing. And so I wanted to give them a little bit of whimsy, which it does have in spades.
Mind Flayer Sherlock Holmes is...
Absolutely. Yeah, they love him. They love him. But we did have a reveal, because one of the characters aboard that train isn't necessarily what they seem. And rather than use it as the book, I twisted it into being a character that was affected by the actions of the players in a long previous session. I may have mentioned that at one point, one of my players destroyed a staff that they'd picked up from the boss of Tomb of Annihilation and rolled really badly with it and blew up a large portion of Port Nyanzaru while they were there, accidentally killing lots of people, which has had consequences throughout the campaign. While one of them, alone on the train car with this individual, was talking, he gave a very David from The Last of Us speech of, "Do you believe in Providence?" Because
telegraphing.
I've been aboard this train, and I was told that a group of adventurers would be boarding this train. And I remember that group of adventurers when I was stood in the city street, in the rubble of my house, in the rubble of my family. And he'd made a deal with some other villains who, while this speech was going on, we were jumping from train car to train car because they were spread across the train. And some of them began to notice streaks of red cloaks and things flying past the windows. And they were being boarded by Red Wizards of Thay, who also had a grudge with the party. And so while they're flying over Elysium, their train is being boarded by Red Wizards and their monstrous thralls, while this one individual has basically facilitated that because they did him dirty and his family by complete accident.
That's great.
And they lost as the speech went on, and they found out why this was happening. You know, when they explained, I lived in Port Nyanzaru, and I remember this event happening, and they just lost it. But at the same time, were freaking out because coming through the windows and running along the roof of the train were Red Wizards.
That's so cool. That's a very cinematic idea. Like, I can picture that very well in my head, almost Death Eater-esque from the films, where
very
you
much
see them
very much
streaking across a window, and they're on their way, and you're like, "Oh, shit's about to go down." Yeah,
that's very cool.
That's so cool.
So a reveal doesn't have to be seeded in. There was no clue that they could find that was going to happen, but it was as a direct result of a consequence that they had facilitated. So a reveal doesn't always have to be some, again, long convoluted series of clues that they can pick up on. It can just be a reveal. and be just as effective.
Yeah, and also not something
hath
that
no
you
fury like an NPC scorned, right?
Yeah, but it's something that doesn't have to be there from when you first plan the game. It's something that you can organically take from the player's actions as you're going through.
Yeah,
100%.
And then be like,
100%.
your actions have consequences, and this will come back to bite you in the arse in an unexpected and surprising way in the future.
Yes.
Yeah. Honestly, I know, Damien, you just wrapped up Icewind Dale. And I'm still making my way through it. We have a handful of sessions to go for my home game, but there is an NPC probably in the first I want to say probably the first session, maybe the second session, that kept kind of reappearing because my players walked in to a tavern in, oh god, what's the main of the 10 towns? What's like the central 10 town, the biggest one?
Bryn Shander.
Yeah, Bryn Shander. They walked into a tavern in Bryn Shander, and I had a tavern map all prepped for them with NPCs just kind of sitting at the bar. I made sure I had a big table because it was a big party so that they could sit there. We're all set. And of course, they go right up to the bar, and one of my guys, just trying to be funny, said, I moved this character off of his stool. And I'm like, oh, well, this is an old man. He's just enjoying his ale late at night, and he's like, yeah, move, old man. And he was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be in the and they threw him off the stool. And they kept going back to this tavern and kept finding, because he was a bar regular, and they kept finding this guy there. So they kept joking how he would be the BBEG of the campaign at the very end, this one slighted old man who the party kept pushing off the bar stool. And I'm like, listen, I have 6 villains to introduce at the end of this campaign in one location. I don't mind adding a 7th if you burn through all 6, and it will be a super powered version of that old man from the tavern. I don't even think we ever gave him a name. I don't think they ever found out his name. He's just the old guy from the bar, basically.
That happens a lot. My home players are constantly pointing out sort of non-small NPCs that they're convinced are going to be the villain of the piece. Congratulations to my Icewind Dale players. They finished the campaign. They survived despite harrowing odds. We talked a little bit about their harrowing odds last week. The dice gods were absolutely in their favor for the for the session. They were making saving throws. They're making attack rolls. My villain didn't ever recharge a particularly horrendous ability. Again, publicly rolled. They saw the roll every time it came up. It was building tension every time that D6 roll came up, and it never did. And they defeated the villain. They went back to 10 towns and were greeted with all the aplomb that they deserve. One of them who'd previously been petrified, meaning a new character. That character was brought out on stage as they were ceremoniously handed. Talking of Star Wars, they were handed their medals, very much like New Hope, with the medals being sort of thrown over their shoulders, and including the petrified version of themselves.
Right.
And
the campaign get one or no?
They do actually have an automaton in the party that isn't a player character. It's a sort of a pet one, a companion that didn't get one because it's a droid. It doesn't get them. But their petrified fellow did, and a kind of poetic. The player. I'm very blessed that all the players want to return for future adventures, which is great, guys. And so one of the players has gone through a couple of characters, and I wanted to give him the option of choosing which one he wanted to continue with. So with this petrified character, and poetically for the end of the campaign, I described after the celebration, which was writ large in Bryn Shander, that next morning, if you know anything about Icewind Dale, you know the significance of this opening sentence was the sun begins to rise.
Hey.
And as the sun touches the petrified statue on the stage, he was a cleric of Palor.
Oh, nice.
And so as the sun slowly climbed up the statue,
the first inklings of flesh began to appear on his finger as the sun rose and warmed Icewind Dale for the first time in a long time. A blessing of the deity for a deed done well. And so that not only was a very poetic close to the campaign, but also gave him the option, if he wanted, to go back to that character, because he's still not sure which way he wants to go with it, without having to find a MacGuffin way of bringing them back. So I thought that was a neat.
That is really cool. That is really cool. Nicely done. It sounds epic. I can only hope my players will survive the cavalcade of villains I'm going to throw at them at the end of this stupid thing. One of them is eager for it, so we'll
seriously, if you're running Icewind Dale and you're looking at the end encounter that takes place in a spire against a floating enemy, seriously read that encounter and think about what you're doing with it, because it is a TPK machine if you're not careful. And I developed a slight change to the rules just because if I didn't, I would have guaranteed a TPK against 4 players. I would have been forcing them into a TPK, 100%.
What rule did you change?
The way in which killing an entity that would have spawned more enemies works.
Oh, okay. I think I see what you mean.
As written, it just happens. Whereas I made it a chance thing. So there was still a threat of danger. I didn't take that away, but it wasn't as definitive, because if it had been, if you know what gets summoned, they still had the boss on the board. There was 4 of them. They were injured. They were 3 or 4 rounds into the fight. They would have died. There was no way that they could have survived it, not even with all the lucky dice rolls in the world. So definitely read and reread that encounter if you're planning on running it, because it's a deadly, deadly one if you're not careful.
Cool.
I gotta look at that.
I think I need to run Icewind Dale. That sounds fucking brilliant.
It's really good. It's one of the better ones for 5e, honestly.
It's great.
It's worth just reading it. If you go, just read it.
Just the encounter, because it's isolated. It's an isolated encounter, so you could easily rip it.
You should totally just read it. It's a really good, really well written adventure, Icewind Dale. It's up there with I would say Curse of Strahd. I think it's pretty.
It's in my top 5 for sure. Maybe even top 4. I think. Yeah, it's really good.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna have to shoot off. So that's the end of the episode, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. It's good to be back, and we shall return. Until next week. Ta-ta for now, guys. Bye.
Ciao.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.